Hey everybody, Mike here. It's been a long time since I did a video. Been trying to write a novel. Vacations, holidays, anyway, no real good reason, I guess, other than life. So today we're going to kick off what I think is going to be a pretty long series of videos looking at 3D mapping and virtual tabletop tools you can use for Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, any role-playing game you want. I own 6. You can see them on the screen there. Flowscape is a mapping tool. Realm Engine is a virtual tabletop. Tailspire is a server-based virtual tabletop. Wildshape is a virtual tabletop. Dungeon Alchemist is a 3D mapping tool. Game Master Engine is a virtual tabletop. And then Solasta we'll talk about really briefly here. I guess I own 7. Solasta is a video game using the system reference documents from Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. And it does have tools you can use to make your own dungeons, your own outdoor environments. It's actually pretty slick, but you can't use it any way other than as a video game as far as I can tell. I haven't found a good way to make a map and export it to use in another virtual tabletop. It's not multiplayer, so you can't make a video game and then have your friends and whatnot join. So there's probably a way to make it work as a 3D mapping virtual tabletop, but I haven't figured it out. So we're going to start with my least used to just about my most used, and maybe not quite in the exact order they're showed there. Well, let's talk a little bit about what we're going to see in this video. I'm going to open each of the tools so you can kind of get an idea for how they look and a little bit about their user interface. This is not a deep dive into any of the tools. I just want to get a kind of an intro so you can see which ones of the future videos you might want to watch. So we'll start with Flowscape. Flowscape, as I said, is a mapping only tool. Couple things to know as we open it up. It is kind of not been updated for a while. Not kind of. It hasn't been updated for a while. It's a solo developer who lives in Australia, had some COVID issues, been taking care of his family. But before COVID hit, we were promised a dungeon making tool. What everyone else has is kind of a wall tool, a building making tool, and it still hasn't been delivered. And I get that things happen. I'm not even a little bit angry or disappointed. I just want to let you know. In addition, there is a second version of Flowscape being worked on by the same developer, and he has indicated any maps you make in the first edition will not be able to be used in the second edition, and I'm pretty sure that you have to buy the second edition of the game, even if you already own the first edition of the game, which I'm going to tell you right now, I hate the user interface of this tool, but it is the most realistic 3D map making tool that I own. You can make some truly amazing art. We're going to change this. Let's just look at something that's fairly flat. Let's look at a tree. Let's put a few trees down. I want you to look at how realistic this is. I mean, it looks real. So what is it I don't like about this interface? Well, if I want to build a house, I pick this house tool, and I go here, and I have to use my scroll wheel to pick the different objects. That's true for almost all the objects, and frankly, it's astoundingly annoying. Look, how would you ever know what you wanted to pick? I really am not a fan of this interface. I can't really recommend this tool right now for a couple reasons. A, we have been promised a new version for a very long time and it hasn't come yet, but it might come, and it might come soon, who knows? And B, I really don't like the user interface. I think it makes beautiful maps. We're going to show some maps later in the video, maybe depending on how long the video gets, that other people have built so that you can see just the amazing art that this thing does. So if you want to build art and really want to make beautiful things, it's not a very expensive tool. You can really do some amazing things here. Just be aware, the user interface is not ideal. There isn't like a wall tool to make walls and buildings and dungeons and type stuff. So if you really want to use this for your role playing, it is definitely not the right tool at this time. It might be in the future. We're filming this in the first quarter of 2022. So who knows? By the time you watch this, maybe it'll be version 2, maybe it'll be version 1 with the dungeon making tool out, and it'll be better. But right now, I use this the least and haven't used it in quite some time. Next, we're going to go to not Game Master Engine, we're going to go to Realm Engine. Now, Realm Engine is a 3D virtual tabletop. Flowscape is only a mapping tool. I have never used any of these tools as a virtual tabletop. I only use them to make maps. And I think while I'm talking, a very loud sound is playing there. As I said, I have only used this to make maps. We're going to open a map that someone else made. Here you can get a feel for how realistic it is. I'd say, it's actually pretty realistic. I'm not in love with the ground, but I know that there is a new version of this being worked on. The user interface of this is supposedly drastically changing in the next version. If you buy this now, you do get the next version as far as I know. So that's good. But, the objects look pretty real. I'd say this is on the somewhat mostly real side. One thing about this is the user interface is pretty good on this. So let's just open the build menu. I'm going to pretend I want to put another house here. I'm just going to lay down a floor. Then I'm going to put down some walls. Look at how easy this is to make a wall where you want it. Okay, that's a bad design because I just made it so you can't get to that corner, but whatever, you kind of get the idea. The user interface here is great. Filter results, here we go. So you can do structures, natures, ruins, props, pre-built. Let's just look at ruins for a second. Look at all of these objects in here and how easy they are to find. Oof, that's really big. So you can see it's pretty easy to use. It's fairly realistic looking. It's not perfect, but it's actually pretty good. One thing you can do with this tool, as with all of the 3D tools except for one, you can change the height of the ground, and we'll look at that later. But again, the goal here is just to give you a really quick overview of what something looks like so you can figure out which of the other videos you might want to watch. So that's a quick overview of Realm Engine. We're not going to want to save that map. Next, we will talk about Tailspire. Tailspire, I think, got more than 1 million, more than 500,000 for sure on Kickstarter. It's got a team of developers. A lot of the other stuff, as I said, is just one developer. This is definitely a 3D virtual tabletop. A couple things to know. First, it is server-based, so you can't play it locally. Secondly, because it's server-based, other people can make what they've built public, and you can put that into your game, which is amazing. It's even easier than using Steam Workshop. And some of the things people have built, they must have 1 million pieces in there. This one is definitely like Legos or Dwarven Forge or Minecraft. You're really building stuff from bricks or from pieces. This map is one that I built. It probably took me 30 minutes, and I hadn't used the tool for 3 months. This is a crypt featured in EN World's Level Up game, which is an alternate version for Dungeons & Dragons, an alternate player's handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, and Monster Manual. It's great. It's awesome. I love it. This is the first adventure for it. I think it's called, I don't know, this is the Crypt in Holdenshire, which is one of the towns, I think. Anyway, it took me almost no time to build this. You can see this looks a lot more like Legos or plastic or Dwarven Forge than it does like reality, I guess. Here's the user interface. So let's say that I want to add a wall over here. I just drop it. And there it is. It's a wall and it's a floor. Bring back the floor tile. Sorry, my Pretty easy to do. Lots of props. We'll just drop we'll drop an object in. We'll drop a tree in so you can see what a tree looks like in this game compared to some of the other games we're going to look at. And you can see, as I was saying, it definitely looks more like something you would get in a Lego game or in a Dwarven Forge type thing, which isn't a problem. I mean, it's just different. Now, I haven't found a good way to take a good picture that I think turns out really well to export this to another virtual tabletop, but you can see the grids are here, and I think that I have this map available on my website. I'll double check. If not, I'll delete that part out of there. If I do, I'll put a link to it down below so you can see the pictures that I took. But it's really meant to be used as a virtual tabletop, not as a mapping tool. It's got a huge user base, very active on Discord. More maps than you could possibly ever use, a bit available and shared by other people. You know, the biggest downsides for this are it's server-based, and everyone that wants to play with you has to have a paid version of the game. Some of the other games, only the Dungeon Master has to have a version of the game. So that's kind of a quick look at the user interface. You know, super easy to use. Other thing I'll say is it just saves. So everything I just did to this map is here now. Like I said, those are the three I use the least. I used to use Flowscape to make maps, but I found Wildshape and I like it better for the UI, and it looks almost as realistic. Tailspire, I just don't think I'm going to ever convince my friends to also purchase Tailspire and use it, and it's not great for making maps to use in other virtual tabletops. And Realm Engine, they're working on a new version, a new interface. I haven't used it very much because I have used the other tools more often. And I'm probably likely to do that, although I really like how easy it is to build the walls and the floors together in Realm Engine. And I'm hopeful that pretty soon they're going to release their new UI, their new version, and we're going to be going ahead. So let's look at Game Master Engine. I've used this one a little bit, not a ton. As you can see, this is an early access. Almost all of these are in early access or in beta, except for Tailspire and Flowscape. I've interviewed the owner of this for my YouTube channel. I have not put it on my YouTube channel because it was just audio and I wasn't ready to do just audio. So you can see this one is also, I guess what I would say, cartoony, plastic, Dwarven Forge, Lego looking, as opposed to realism is not their goal here. But again, a great user interface, so easy to pick what you want, nature, interior, exterior, village set, whatever. Boom, I have a house. Look at trees because we're trying to get a feel for how things look compared to other things. There you can see it looks a lot like the previous trees in Dwarven Forge. Not really necessarily going for realism. There we go. It's actually pretty realistic looking. Some of the stuff is more realistic looking than others, but realism is not necessarily their goal. Their goal is to be able to make really good maps. They do have a decent number of miniatures that you can put in, which we'll get into in more detail, but there's kind of the look and feel. Big fan of this user interface. This gets to us to the two that I think I would recommend the most today based on what they are. The first is Dungeon Alchemist. This earned more than $1 million in Kickstarter. It's currently in closed beta. I did back it at a level high enough to get into the closed beta. And it is only a mapping tool. So everything else we've looked at, there's a way to adjust the height of the ground, either through layers or other things. Except for maybe Game Master Engine. They might have taken that out, but they're putting it back in so that you can layer stuff on top of each other. This tool is a 3D mapping tool, but you can't change the terrain height, which again we'll get into in other videos, but I just wanted to let you know that. It is in beta, it is closed beta. This quarter, first quarter of 2022, they're supposed to release. Right away you can see down here it says beta. You can see this is pretty professional. It's really quite slick. I'm just going to make a very big outdoor space. I would say something like a third, maybe only a fourth of the objects that we're going to be getting and the capabilities that we're going to be getting from the Kickstarter are here. But just like that, I generated an outdoor space. It randomly put stuff down for me. Now let's put in a tavern. We'll just do a random tavern right here. And it builds a tavern for me just like that. Let's wait for the AI to actually work. Looks like it built a bedroom in the bedroom part of the tavern. I don't really want a bedroom. It's pretty easy. I go over to the objects, I pick an object, and I hit delete, or I use the delete key. Let's make this even easier. Tavern, Great Hall. Check. It's gonna make a Great Hall for me. There's a Great Hall. I mean, amazingly slick. You can take any of these objects out of here that you want. I don't want that kettle there, or that one there, or that one there. That thing's really too big. There we go. You can change out you can see that different kinds of things have different walls. There are light sources. This thing is slick. The user interface is so easy. Draw a room, place objects, change the walls. Let's put in a curtain type door. Wow, couldn't be any easier. When you hover over, it tells you what it is. It is definitely really good. There are a ton of objects, and like I said, we're looking at getting significantly more objects as time goes on. You can put objects on top of objects if there's room. It's a great tool. This is not a virtual tabletop. It is meant as a mapping tool. It does have exports built for line of sight and walls and light purposes for Foundry, Roll20, and I think Fantasy Grounds. It might be, they're probably teaming up with more people. Looks realistic. I'm not going to say it's perfectly realistic. The plants, don't look Flowscape realistic, but they look realistic. The user interface is great. I would definitely, if you want to make maps, and if you're not looking for virtual tabletop, if you want to make maps and have a top-down view that's really good and a perspective view that's really good, this tool's amazing now, and I can't even imagine how good it's going to be when it's out of beta. Let's get to the one that I use for outdoor scenes, for dungeons, for caves, and that's Wildshape. I've used this one the most of all of them, and I'm still no expert in it because I can go sometimes a couple of months without using the tool. Just do start. I'm going to pick a map that I built. This map took me about an hour and a half. I probably could have done it in 20 or 30 minutes had I not been trying to make it look really good for a contest. This is also a virtual tabletop. This is the second most realistic looking of the tools. It looks pretty darn realistic. But here we go. You can see what it looks like. That tree looks, those plants look really real close up. Like stunningly real. Okay. Let's look at the user interface. If we want to place an object, we have objects. I'm in a test branch, so kind of ignore this. If we want to place an object, you can see there are categories over here. They're currently they're taking a lot of feedback on their Discord channel about fixing their user interface, which is great because it kind of needs it. Trees. Let's put that kind of tree right in the middle of the road because why not? We can. rock down. See, that rock is not the most realistic looking rock. That one looks more realistic. Pretty easy user interface. The biggest issue is the categories and some of the other things. I will say that, and the reason I said at the beginning I use this for caves and outdoor scenes is because he's reworking his wall building tool, and he definitely needs it. It's not the greatest part of the tool. It works. You could definitely build a tavern like I showed for the previous tool, and there are lots of objects that you can put in to a tavern like I did in the previous tool. It's just not as good as the previous tool yet. This is again a single developer. I do have an interview with him on my YouTube channel, which I'll put a link to below, but I mean, this is pretty realistic looking. There you have it, an overview of Wildshape, Dungeon Alchemist, two tools I definitely recommend. Flowscape, I would say wait until there's a new version. Game Master Engine, if you want something that's more building blocks and it's got a lot of objects. They have two developers. They're cranking out an update every couple or 4 weeks, adding new props all the time. I really do like the tool. I would say, it's probably on par with Wildshape for virtual tabletop abilities. The UI is better than Wildshape, but it doesn't look as realistic, so it kind of depends on what you're looking for. They also don't currently have grids active, so you can't see the grids, which is kind of a bummer. I know they're coming back. They were in the tool. They did a lot of updates on the background of the tool, and they're going to be putting the grids back in. Realm Engine, which I'm really intrigued by, and can't wait for the new version to really get a good feel for how the UI is, how realistic everything looks, how easy it is to build a house. It's so easy to build a house there compared to some of the other ones. Solasta is a video game. Can't really say that you can use it as a mapping tool. And then Tailspire, amazing tool if you want something that looks like Legos, that looks like Dwarven Forge on your virtual tabletop, but it is server-based, not local, and everybody has to own a copy of the game to use it as a virtual tabletop. And I'm not sure I would make stuff in it and take pictures to use in another virtual tabletop. So there you have it, a quick overview of those tools. The next video, I'm going to concentrate a little bit about their user community, their Discord channels, pricing, that sort of thing. But yeah, if you like this video, it'd be great if you subscribed. I have 95 subscribers. Would love to get to 100. Thumbs up would be great. Like it, share it. I'd really appreciate it if you did that. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful day.